Before beginning this lesson, go ahead and go into your exercise folder and dig out an image that begins with 705, our lovely lady right here. We're going to talk about enhancement kind of things in this chapter. I mean, whitening teeth, getting rid of red eye, removing wrinkles. So what we want to do with this image is very selectively remove areas of the image that contain wrinkles and leave the other areas intact. Now, there's a lot of ways we can do that. I mean, the healing brush comes to mind. I love that tool. But you use it all the time and you get really good with it. And then you're confronted with a situation where it's not doing what you want it to do and you go to another method. Guess what? We're going to use another method. So with our pretty lady open here, let's go ahead and make a copy. Now the easiest, well not easiest, one way to do it, let's say, is to drag background down on top of the new icon. Just like that, we got a copy. Next step, go up to the word filter on the pull-down menu, go down to blur, and yes, Gaussian blur. Now in Gaussian blur, we can change the blur of the image. We can also change what we see up here. Understand something about Gaussian blur. It is linked in a sense to the resolution of the image. If you have a really, really high resolution image, a 4.6 might not do much of anything. And if it is, say, real low resolution, it might do a whole lot. What we want is not a number as much as a look over here. So I'm thinking more than that, but not quite that much. I'm going to actually type in the number because I can never get the number I want. Something for me around a 15. So you see most of the wrinkles are lost in the blur. So pick a number that makes something that looks somewhat like this. Go ahead and click OK. Okay, now come down, make sure you have that selected, which it should be. Create a layer mask right here, click that button. Double click on the mask and it will open up the properties right here. Do just one thing, invert. Now what happens when you invert is you invert the color set of the mask, which makes it black, which makes it go away. Remember, when you're working with a mask, black means invisible, don't apply. White means apply. Shades of gray mean, well, whatever shade of gray, apply that percentage. So we're gone. It's invisible for now. Let's go ahead and close this out. And see if I turn this one off, there's nothing there. Now here's the trick. Go ahead and do this first. Let me show you something. Hold on the Alt key, and that's the Option key on a Mac, Alt in Windows, and click on the mask. Now that will bring it out like that. Now come over here. Make sure you have white as your painting color and pick up your paintbrush tool. Now, in your options, I want you to change one thing. Change the flow from 100%, that's default, down to about 10%. Now, let me show you how that works now. Let me get a bigger brush. I'll use my right bracket key. Left bracket key makes it smaller. If I had a flow of 100% and I painted, that would go 100% white, wouldn't it? Now watch. Flow allows me to create an accumulation. In other words, I can stop before it gets to full white, and I can control the process of what areas in the blurred image get reapplied to the image. I'm going to press undo, my favorite key. Let's get rid of that. Let's go ahead and Alt, and again, Alt in Windows Option on a Mac, click, bring back our image. Now make sure that you have the mask selected. Let's come over here. I think I'll get a little bit of a smaller brush with my left bracket key, and just start painting. Now you'll notice as I do this, the more I apply myself to go over an area, the more blurred that one area gets. I kind of, think of this as more of an airbrushing technique. We come down here. What areas do you want to soften up? Now you're not going to soften her eyes. You're not going to soften her hair. You're not going to soften her teeth. Okay, you're just softening the wrinkles. We're creating a selective mask out of our Gaussian blur to soften these areas up. And again, I'm not trying to make her look like she's 20 years old. It's a very selective process to soften areas. I think I'll go right over her lip once or twice to soften that up a little bit, and maybe come down here. Just like this. Maybe a little bit over this. And then over here, staying away from the areas that I want to stay in detail. Like I said, it's a very subtle effect. What you're doing is understanding that you have an image, it's got wrinkles in it, and you're eliminating very subtly some of those areas, softening them up. That's all we're doing. Now, if you feel you got too much, change your painting color to black and do the same thing, and it will slowly bring it back for you. But wherever a wrinkle is, if you want to reduce it, all you have to do is paint. And you create the selective mask. Here's a before and an after so far. Very subtle. But it does work, and it's kind of like an airbrushing technique. So you're working with a Gaussian blur. You decide the amount of blur you want to use. You reduce the flow of your paintbrush to about 10%, and then you begin selectively painting on the mask to reduce the areas that have all the wrinkles, and don't go to the areas that have details like hair and teeth and eyes. It is an interesting method. It's been around for a long time, and it works quite well.